throw a 300-pound man on his ass, right? But internally, there's so much going on there. And so I appreciate every one of you, for real. Thank you very much for being open, having this conversation.
I think one of the things that I struggle with being in a bigger body compared to other people in smaller bodies or mid-size is it literally takes over my whole life. Like I can't go anywhere without thinking about being bigger than other people. I can't make plans or even travel without having to think about accommodations that I'm going to need, or going somewhere new. Do I know what like seating looks like? Do I know who's going to be there? Are there people in my life that are going to invite someone if we go to a restaurant that's not going to be as like great as the people that I surround myself with, that are going to be weird about how much bigger I am than them? So I think a lot of it, like bigger people have to think about things that like smaller bodies or even mid-sized bodies don't have to, that I think a lot of people would be shocked if they knew like how much you actually have to think about it and how this world is not set up for bigger figures at all. Like we have to ask for things that should just already be available to us.
Especially what you were saying about things not being built for you. I mean, I broke this couch just now. So sorry, whoever owns this house. We were talking earlier about like, don't invite me to the barbecue if you have plastic chairs. Like I have broken more chairs, broken more beds, slammed my head on anything you can imagine. Had to have the weird like little armrest battle with somebody on the airplane. It's there was a lot of economic downsizing, especially in like airlines and stuff like that, in order for them to turn more profit. That kind of came at the detriment of bigger people, things that we are now considered, it's our fault we don't fit on the plane. It has nothing to do with the fact that you shrunk the size of the seat by 60% over the last couple of years. But it's it's a blast.
I struggle with clothing as well. I'm a big vintage thrift person. I'm in everywhere I go and travel, I'm always hitting a different store, but it's such rarely things my size. And I know from making clothes that anyone who's ever been a big person has just bought something just for the fact that it fit, and the excitement of like finding something that just fits. Like when people think that certain things are comfortable, even those really comfortable movie theater seats that everybody loves, the side of my leg always reclines and unreclines me, like without me wanting to be reclined. I'm like literally panicking and having to put something like my phone between me and the side of the seat because they don't put the button on the top. They're putting it there thinking that it's ample room, or back seats of cars, or like airplane seats. And it's just the whole world is not really made for us. And so it's like, and it doesn't matter too because I've lost weight and it's been my height. It's just being a person who's above average size in any capacity. How do you find comfortability and how do you find things that are made for you?
I think you become comfortable with being uncomfortable at some point, right?
Yeah, at some point you just already know.
I think there's a lack of accessibility, like you said, when it comes to shopping and actually going into a store and leaving with clothes that feel good. That's the biggest issue I find as a bigger person. I'm sure you guys can relate with that. So
I think it's crazy that the average size for a man in America is a 39.9 waist, but most designers stop at a 38.
Mm-hmm. Crazy, right?
So they stop right. Their highest size is below average.
For women, it's an 18, and and like the majority of stores stop at a 12,
a 16, maybe.
Yeah,
And
I mean, it's not uncommon that I'll like, oh, I like this small, medium, large, and I'm like, great, I just saved myself money.
I think one thing too that's have been interesting to me lately is like across the board, there's such a mental load associated with all of this. Like other people who don't live in bigger bodies just don't have to think about these things. I can't imagine planning a vacation or going to the mall and just being able to walk in and be like, okay, cool, this works.
It's
Oh,
not
I
even
forgot
the
my bathing suit.
planning.
Let me get my bathing suit in the gift shop at the
Exactly.
hotel.
Right.
Yeah,
Like-
right.
Right.
Exactly.
It's not even the planning. Like, God forbid, like something last minute comes up,
Right.
or the airlines lose your suitcase. Like, I won't check a bag because of that. We have less than 8% of access to stores as plus size people. Less than 8%. Like, That is bananas. Like I was explaining this. I was having a conversation with a non-plus person, explaining to them like, you can't just drop me in the middle of LA and expect me to find some clothes. Los Angeles, like there's no mall that caters to a plus size person, that has one store, and if it does,
It's matronly.
it's matronly. It's
Matronly.
like
Or the
It's not
larger sizes are
stylish.
online only.
Yep.
So,
right,
yeah.
online only. Mm-hmm.
I have to drive 30, 40 minutes just to go to the closest big and tall store for a white shirt. If I need a white dress shirt, now so many men could go into like a big box store or any place and pick up just a plain white. I can't even find a plain white tee. I have to drive 30, 40
Unless
minutes.
you go to like Target or Walmart.
They won't have it.
Even
not big
They don't have my
Not
sizes.
anymore.
It's only on, yeah.
Yeah.
you gotta go.
I went to a department store for a casting I had as a model, and because I needed a plain white shirt, and I went to an unnamed, let's just say it's the biggest store in the world, and it might be in the middle of Herald Square, New York, and it has 8 floors and all that stuff. The men's big and tall section was less than 250 square feet in the corner somewhere, and they didn't have a white shirt.
If you want to name things, there is 0 articles of clothing in Walmart that fit me. There's 0 article of clothing in Target. There's 0 article of clothing at H&M. There's 0 article of clothing at any store. I can walk in a mall and leave with nothing. Right. Absolutely nothing. Which is why I think growing up as a teen, I had every hat and every shoe.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I knew I could buy a.
Right. Because they don't always fit, right?
That's like the universal plus size teenager experience to go to the mall. I remember so many times, like Victoria's Secret, I'm buying the Love Spell body splash or whatever when I was a teenager.
When
Like that's
FYE
the universal.
closed, there was no reason for me to go to the mall anymore.
Right. I think the mall is like, I know that might not be relevant to younger folks, but to people like in our age group, going to the mall and not being able to find anything but accessories or CDs or whatever, that is a really good barometer of like us just not having the same experience as people who live in smaller bodies.
And when you think about like the online only part, like to me that feels very much like dating in the dark. Like you will happily take my money, just not in person. Like, and then what message does that tell the next person, right? Like what message does that tell you? Like I'm not worthy, like I'm only good online. Like
Right.
It's a really unfortunate kind of mind game.
Right.
Especially when you're just trying to feel good just about existing. But then you've got every kind of place, every touch point telling you you're not good enough to experience this in person.
Right. You're not welcome here.
Even
Right.
things like sunglasses and watch bands. Like it's like everything is so difficult. Like you have to go the extra mile all the time to try to find something. Literally every single thing has to always be custom.
For me, it's hats. I can't buy a hat for shit.
Oh really?
Sorry, this is a family-friendly event. Sorry.
No, I mean, it's expensive being bigger because, I mean, even things like fast fashion, like, is it great for the environment? No. But if we want to have things that are stylish or at least like of this year, like we can't even get that because they don't make our sizes. And if they do, then it's usually things that are like meant to be oversized, or they're things that are just not fashionable, don't make you feel good.
Right. We're not getting
exact
high-end designer
You have to
pieces
pay more if
until
you
they're
want to be
knocked off.
plus size. Yeah, like and it's even stores that carry plus sizes, like a big store that just walked back what they were doing with like making plus sizes in stores. Even the stuff that you get online, like it's getting smaller. Like it's not necessarily that you're getting bigger, it's they're making things harder for us to get.
Like a towel at the gym or the spa.
Tiny.
Like I just want to be able to like cover
Or a
it.
robe.
There's a spa near my house where you have to put on like the uniform of the spa, and literally I'm the not only do I stick out anyway as a bigger bodied person, but now I'm the only one in like shorts that aren't like this neutral color.
And all of those things I think really take a toll on our mental health. Like when we don't have access to things, we aren't seen as being represented in media. All of those things really go into play with how you feel about yourself, how you feel about your body, feeling accepted in the world as a society, in your own individual parts of the world. So for example, I'm a doctor of clinical psychology, and I've had to work 2 to 3 times harder than my straight-sized colleagues because I'm not taken seriously. I'm not paid as much. In general, all of this definitely affects depression, self-esteem, self-worth. When I work with people and they come around and start learning more about body neutrality and how to get there and intuitive eating and things like that, that heal the parts of them that have got destroyed from society. And I love that part of my job, and I love when people come to me for that. I'm like, yes, we are going to get you fixed up. We're going to like fix how we think about these things. But the majority of the population doesn't have that. I know lots of people in rural places that don't even know the term body positivity, and those are typically the people who need it the most.
Growing up in adolescence, it was so hard. Like when your body is still forming and changing, and you're told that you're wrong, and you're told that you don't belong, and you can't have the popular thing that the kids have, or you don't fit in anything in the cool store.
Well, it's also like we stopped being kids way before everyone else. The amount of people that, like, I had a full man-grown body by the time I was like 10 years old. So because of that, and you stop getting treated not just by your peers, but by adults. You stop getting treated like a kid, and you stop getting to feel that safe bubble where you can grow up and learn and experiment. It's like, I mean, the fact that like, I mean, I was proud of it as a little kid, but when there's like, all right, I need someone to move these tables. Teacher, Zach, why don't you come up and start just lugging furniture around at 9 years old?
Elise the Beast. That was my nickname.
Yeah.
You know, but even like piggybacking off of that, as a Black woman, growing up, like we are already, Black girls are even seen as women as a, you know, they remove that innocence of a child. A 10-year-old girl is now a woman, and it's like all of those responsibilities of an adult is thrust upon them, and don't let them be someone who's developed, who has a, you know, fuller body, because now you're having to fight not just against society seeing you as a grown person when you're 10, but then you've got the men who are like who are trying to come on to you. So you're fighting all these different elements. How do you navigate and keep a sane mind and keep your wits about you? Like, I got my MBA in marketing. So for me, like, that was drilled into us in school. At the end of the day, it's all about the dollar, right? So I'm like, yo, if 67% of women are plus size and only 12% of these clothes are made in plus, there's all this money to be made.
And then they blame it on, say that it costs more to make, and they don't realize how much more money they could make.
That argument has always been nonsense, because I've worked with so many brands that charge more for their big and tall stuff. And when I ask them, they're like, well, you know, it's more fabric, so this. I'm like, so when you sell an extra small, do you give people a discount? And they
Also, I hate that they use a pattern that's made for something that's a medium and a large, and they just add more fabric to like this, so the pockets won't match, and you know, or they'll be wider on the butt. Like, it's like, instead of being maybe enlarging the pockets to kind of equal, there's not a lot of thought put into that kind of stuff.
For the short period I've been in, I've seen some improvements. I mean, I've seen more representation, which has been interesting, but I can only imagine how it was like when you guys started years and years ago, you know?
I feel like it's more important that we begin to tell our stories. When I speak to college students, or I speak to anybody who's starting out, I say to them, any single thing that I got made fun of for in my life, or any single thing that I was told I couldn't do something for, those are the reasons that I cash a check today. Those are pain points. And if you can get your pain point monetized, it'll become a paid point. It's about taking something that it's a gift when somebody makes fun of you, or it's a gift when somebody tells me that you can't do something because of something, because that's the thing that sets you apart. That makes you an original in your field, an original in what you're doing. So it takes like trailblazing things to happen. So anytime you're on screen, like, you're making a win for so many people that fall into all the different categories you are. Like, I tell myself, like, if you're gonna see something, you're gonna get fat, gay, or Italian, because that's what I am. And if I could do the trifecta, that's good on me, you know. But like, I'm gonna try to infuse everything, you know. Like, I recently played a character in something, and the character didn't have to be fat, and the character not necessarily wasn't gay. They never talked about my private life, but I was like, can I change the last name to be an Italian last name? And they were like, sure. And so it's just like these little tiny moments where we could like push forward and say, hey, this character isn't plus size, but I am. So I'm the best person for this role, and then I could take this, and who's to say there isn't like a fat hotel manager, or like a fat judge, or a fat cop, or whatever. because it's like the more we're seen visible, the more we're like accepted as being something, and the more we destigmatize the word fat, because fat is just a descriptor. Like I don't mind when someone says, "Oh, the fat guy over there." Like what matters to me is intention. If someone's like, "You fat," like, then I'm like, "What are you trying to do? Are you trying to hurt me right now?" And I think that, but when someone says, "Oh yeah, you'll see him. He's the fat loud guy. He's really funny. He's a great looking guy." Like I don't care. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Because so it's about taking those things that hurt and how can you flip them to be a positive thing, and how can you flip it to be something that benefits you and other people that come after you.
Someone was talking about the Ozempic craze and like, oh, like this whole trend of like, oh, plus size fashion is becoming a fad and like things are going to disappear. I'm like, they've been calling us a fad for the last 15 years and we still here. And if anything, we're still in our infancy. We still have a long ways to go. So there's no, like, we're not just going to all disappear like a day without a fat person. I mean, come on now. Like, so when you have like these things that are still coming down, that are breaking these barriers, breaking down these stereotypes, like, you know, folks like us and anyone who has a voice and anyone who could build a platform to speak up and show up, like that's impactful, that's important.
I've dated people who have been like, Danny's a big guy and I never liked a big guy before, but I like Danny. So it's like being visible in any way, like us being in everything from toothpaste ads to sex scenes are putting us in places where when we weren't historically, and people go, oh, that's an option to think someone is attractive in that light.
It normalizes it for sure.
Like Queen Latifah, and all of the leads that she's had. Like, hello, like I grew up watching her and I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm cute. Like it didn't even cross my mind that I couldn't have or couldn't be, because like I was always zoomed into every show, that every movie, wherever she was, I was right there.
And she could dress. Like I grew up watching Living Single, and I was like, that's how I want to dress. I want to stand out, and I want to like. I think seeing Queen Latifah growing up was like it was that visibility for larger bodied kids to be like, there's someone like me who runs a magazine. It was like we really didn't have anything like that.
The absolute style icons for me were the Fat Boys. Like there is not a picture of the rap band the Fat Boys where they are not wearing an outfit that I would put on in a second today. Like I don't know who their stylist was or where they got their stuff, but like I think that's part of the what I've created. Again, and when I say paid, I don't only mean money, although I do, but taking a pain point and turning it into something that pays you in a different way. Like my hunt for fashion, my hunt to find the things that do fit, actually it sets me apart. It puts me in something, you know. You said to me the other day, every time you see me, you like something that I'm wearing. Well, that to me, that's a point of pride. That paid me. I got paid in flowers for the research that I had to do to find someone that would custom make this jacket, for instance.
There's been something about mainstream media, especially, I mean, speaking from a representation side, where mainstream media has an obsession with breaking barriers, and then once they felt like they've broken the barrier, they no longer need to follow up on it.
Right.
They're like, we checked one box.
Exactly.
And now it can be done.
Like I know when people, I mean, I was quoted as being like one of the first plus size male models ever, and then I didn't work for basically 2 years. For like 2 years was us just like doing everything we could to try to get brands to even consider it for a
Do you
second.
remember we did an ad where it was like technically the first plus size men in Esquire in
Yes.
an ad, and then I've never seen a plus size man in Esquire
No,
again.
never not.
They were like, they made us
there was
huge
4 of us.
deal.
They did this huge
They put us
profile
on the cover
on
of the
plus
building,
men in fashion,
and I was like, wow, we're
and then
like
never
opening
again.
the door for who? They slam it shut.
Yeah, it never happened again, and it never.
Tokenization versus representation. It's like we want to make it look like we're diverse and inclusive, but unless you're really giving us the room to contribute to the conversation, then it's really just us being tokenized.
I think that kind of like builds upon brands and companies seeing us as people and as experts and as like people who know what the hell we're talking about. We're not just here just to be cute and just to give some kind of representation.
But we are.
But you know what I'm saying? Like we know what we're talking about, and there's enough. I mean, especially when we see some of these brands roll out different things, and we're like, this is gonna fall.
Old Navy. How many of us knew Old Navy was gonna fail?
They've been on my mind this whole conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, but if
What
they
did Old Navy
actually, because
They put it in stores.
Right.
They put
This
every
whole
single
no
item
marketing.
for women's, I think. So
For
every
women's,
single
not
item
for men's.
was
That was the whole
available
thing.
from small to 4X.
Body quality.
They did like one initial round of PR. They didn't work with any influencers. They didn't really do anything. And then after a year, they were like, it failed. And it was like, well, nobody really even knew you did it.
I mean, especially, but
Yeah.
get this, especially when they spent the last 10 years telling us you can't shop in
Right.
store. They thought one season like of a launch was going to sustain and be all that they needed in order to actually effectively market. I remember I was part of the launch and we wrote about it and we did, and I was like, okay, where's the rest? And then they had that commercial, but there was no call to action on the commercial.
Growing up being excluded by mainstream fashion brands, we want those brands so badly because we were always told that we couldn't have them. The problem is fashion brands do not make a move unless it makes sense for their pocketbook. They do not care. They don't want to change ever.
And how about all these internet companies where they say it goes up to 7x or something, and I'm like, wow, it's like bigger than me. And then like you try to go for like, I'll go for one less than the biggest size, and it shows up and it like would never fit anyway. And then they're like, oh, we don't do returns, but if you want like half off of your next thing, or like I'll send you a replacement, and you're already at the highest size, and they make it so difficult to return.
You have to pay for shipping, pay for return shipping.
Right, but this is also why when any brand says, oh, we do sizing up to, I will go pull up Torres size chart and I will compare. And so when I'm writing about like this brand, their 5X fits like a Torres 3X.
Standard sizing has existed for less than a century. It's not the way clothing was done for the entire history of humanity. True. Clothing was always a custom-made thing. But then these companies found out they can make a butt ton of money by mass producing things instead of making quality clothing. And then what happened is when people went, hey, this doesn't fit me, they go, oh, well, that's your fault because you gotta fit our body.
Also, like washing clothes, like when clothes are like divided by weight, like, and like, I remember in New York City, my roommates being like, how much is your laundry? And I'm like, well, one of my jeans weighs like 4 pairs of your jeans. You know what I mean? Like, or
I had a laundromat lose 4 pairs of jeans once, and I only owned 4 pairs of jeans at the time. And finding the correct size for those jeans, I was like, it was the only time I'm not someone who throws a fit. Like if I receive like poor customer service, that was the one time ever where I was like, I don't own pants anymore.
Or the particle board furniture, like I could spend as much as I want on a dresser, and the weight of my pants will eventually break.
Yes.
It will bend and warp. Do you know how many beds I've broken? Like seriously, like a crazy amount. Like probably a 3 or 4. Like at some point, I remember this one guy. He hit on me. He took me home. Okay, and we had a great time. It was actually a great experience. Even when the bed broke, it was like one of those IKEA slat beds, but even when the bed broke, like we laughed and we had this great time. And then in the morning, he was like, you owe me a bed. I'm like, you know who you took home. You don't like catch a fish, bring it home and be like, you broke the oven. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
True
I'm like, how many big boys have you tortured in this walk-up?
I mean, I think part of it too is there's not enough people at the top making those decisions that are diverse enough. Like there are no plus size people in those rooms, no people of color, like no women. Like I work in marketing. I've always worked in marketing. I'm usually 9 times out of 10 the only bigger figure in the room, and a lot of times because of just where I am in my career, often the only woman. God forbid if anyone is like not white in the room. Like there's just no representation. So when it comes to making those decisions, like they're not consulting people that don't look like them. They're just like, what we know in this room is fact because like we're all here talking about it. But if they're not bringing in like diverse people, like those decisions and those things are never going to change. But plus size people can't like get up there.
They talk a big game where they don't want when a lot of these brands are like, we want to be inclusive. What they're saying is we want to be inclusive while giving up none of my own power. Right.
We want to look good, but we don't actually want to do the hard work that it takes. Like they don't want negative feedback.
To get a manufacturer to listen and to implement that and to do something is literally the same thing. It's like it feels like a validation of getting something back for the hardships. One of the things about working with Big Fig and doing this collective is how rewarding it is to see them listen to what we have to say and then implement those things directly into the brand. We know that we're permanently affecting people like us who want to see the diversity, who want to feel the comfort, who want to have something that's quality, and want to have something that's made with the thought of that in mind. Like, and I have been working, and all of us have been working with different kinds of brands and organizations and people all the time, having these kind of conversations. But I can honestly say that I don't think I've had this in depth of a conversation with plus size luminaries like y'all, like talking about what needs to be done. And seeing those things change and seeing that happen and I now look towards any other partnerships I have with anything else I do to live up to what Big Fig has done for the plus size community.
I think it's so powerful because all of us individually are on our paths and impacting our change, in our own communities and with our own audiences. But the power when you come together as a collective, that really is a great name for it because collectively we can do so much more together. And I've really enjoyed being part of the Big Fig Collective because they're giving us a space to represent the people that we speak to every single day. And I love that Big Fig isn't just creating a product to sell to people for the bottom line, which of course any business is in business to make money, but they genuinely care. And having this group of people in a room and having these conversations, that alone shows the commitment. But we're not just sitting here to have the conversation for no reason. We've had 2 years now of seeing them actually implement the things we talk about and supporting the causes we care about and creating the products we care about and just listening to all of that feedback. So, making a difference for people, seeing representation and having these conversations that are unrelated to the mattress, but then just having that access to provide direct feedback to a company who's trying to create things for us, I think is
and
invaluable.
not just the experience as a big person, but the experience as a big person of color, or a queer big person, or a female, or I just think that it's so interesting that we have this spectrum of what that means. We are not just a person who is heavy or oversized or whatever. There's different kinds of complications and needs and everything. And to hear all y'all's perspective has been so enriching to me. I know I've taken so much home from you guys, like from just listening to everybody talk. We're all so different, and I think that it is a fair representation of our, contemporaries out there who are dealing with the same things.
We all have our platforms that we have access to brands and access to, but like for a brand to feel like a brand is paying attention and is listening and is actually caring about what you're saying,
right,
and making those changes, it's empowering, right? It's really comforting to have that kind of support. And to watch a brand like pause, take an inventory of what they're doing, why they're doing it, and whom they're doing it for, get all these inputs, and to make the changes. I mean, over the last 2 years, we've been talking about sheets. I'd been complaining like my sheets don't fit, like I can't find sheets, and then boom, they got sheets, and I'm like, oh my God, and they're great cooling ones, like.
And in a bed, yes, you sleep, but you also make babies, and you also find peace, and you're also resting. It's the heart of your home and it's such an important space to start at for inclusivity and for body positivity and for health.
One of my favorite things about doing this has been what I've been learning from all of y'all, because I've been big my whole life. I thought I knew exactly what it was like. I didn't know there were so many nuances and different experiences. I thought what I knew was, even just, you're talking about sheets, even us just talking about the fact that like things we just tested out pillow toppers today. The fact that we had different opinions on them, I'm like, no, this is what big people like, is this one thing. And then all of y'all are like, no, actually, because when I move this way or this, and I'm like, you sleep that way? I've never slept that way in my whole life.
It's the intersectionality, it's the color, it's the variation. I think for so long, many marketing companies painted plus size people with one broad stroke. And now we have the individuality to show up as ourselves, as our individual color, just colorful and own that. Right. And this is a company that's allowed for us to do that unapologetically, and they listen and pay attention. Like,
it's so interesting, even with just social media. I remember back like toward the beginning, like any other plus size person, I'd just be like, follow, follow, follow. Because it's like, you have that in common. Okay. But now it's like, there are enough people speaking out. It's like, you know what? Like, this is someone I want to follow, but this person's not really, they don't have my style or whatever. It's just so nice to even have that variety of not just having to be like, oh, we're all plus size, so we have everything else. We can just all get along. And we get along, but it's like, there are so many of us out there now that you can find people who have other similarities aside from just your body. And it's really cool to be able to connect with people both on that topic on the body, but then also have other things in common or not
like
as
the
well.
plus size mommy, the plus size wear to work, the plus size actor, the plus, you know, like you have the plus and to find those communities. Right.
Yeah, plus is not a monolith. And I think brands are seeing that we're not a monolith and that we don't view our bodies as something that's temporary, that can change or should change. And I feel like Big Fig coming along with this 20-year warranty was like, this is an investment in who we know you are, and you may change size over the years. We're still going to be there for you. But even if you don't, like, this is a product that's worth investing in because you as a larger body person are worth that investment. You are not temporary. This isn't your temporary body.
And while Big Fig, like, obviously made the bed for plus size people, I think it's more than that. Like, this collective and also the community that Big Fig has helped facilitate make is something that none of us had growing up. And I mean, even people growing up now, like, you can find a community for anything, but it's so much harder to find a space like being a plus size person. And like, you know, in a digital world, having somewhere that you can go and you can find anyone that, because they look like you, that's great, but also like the other interests that you have in mind. Like, Big Fig, I think, is kind of like holding the reins in terms of like building that kind of community, and there are different facets to it, and like intersectionality is a huge part of it. Like, it's not just like all Big Fig creators in one space or all plus size people in one space. It's like there are different sections, and Big Fig, like just starting this collective, I think is awesome for representation. And then people growing up, like, I wish we had something like this growing up that I could look to and watch this kind of video or engage with the content, because like I needed some guidance. Like, I needed some like people that look like me in the media, and it just wasn't there. And now I'm hoping that this is kind of like that for some people.
One of the things I always think about the movement is that we get as a negative trait to us is people always say that the body positivity movement is about just blindly being fat and like walking through life like not caring about our health, or and I think that this is a direct place that we're caring about our health. This is a place that we say we need a good night's sleep, we need to feel safe, we need to be able to feel like we can do everything that is done on a bed and feel comfortable and safe.
We deserve the same stuff that everyone else has.
I want to say that I appreciate everyone here because I spent a lot of time playing football, and a lot of people I spent my time around, like, weren't as open and as having intellectual conversations, not just about this, but just in general. Like, at certain points I've had to hold back crying, honestly, because it's been very, very cool to be around you guys, for real. I spent a lot of my life, I was the kid that wore a shirt every time I hung out in the pool. Like, I never was confident, you know what I mean? I could go out there and I could, throw a 300-pound man on his ass, right? But internally, there's so much going on there, And so I appreciate every one of you, for real. Thank you very much for being open, having this conversation, and, being you guys. Probably one of the youngest people in this room. And, as I mentioned, you guys have been in it for a while, and it's just awesome to, learn and just soak in. I haven't talked as much, but it's been awesome to just observe, and really, I'm going to take this with me for my life, for real. So I appreciate it. So thank y'all.
Thank you for being vulnerable, because that's dope. And honestly, truly, like, I have a hashtag that's like, let your belly see the sun. Because at some point, it's like, we deserve the sun. You know what I'm saying? And I one time put that under me with taking a shirt off, and I had a man say to me, young man, I'm 66 years old, and I wish I had the courage that you had. And I said, what are you waiting for, 77? I said, what do you care? What are you afraid people are going to make fun of you? I said, let them make fun of you. Stick your titties in their face. Because truthfully, like, normalizing your body, like a kid might go, and his mom would be like, stop that. And you might save some kid from middle school from being tortured, because this kid learned the lesson there. Because we normalized it, and we were there, And let me tell you something, God made no mistakes. you know, and you should be proud of your body and you should be able to use it. You got one. Like, and you can't let anybody else and what anybody else thinks about you ever let you stop you from using what your body can do. And anyone who's ever been sick will tell you the same thing. You know, I was in the hospital this year, and when I thought I was going to lose abilities in my body, like now I want to use them even more than ever. You know, so we should be in the sun. We should be able to do the same things everybody else does, and be able to feel like that, doing that comfortably. But bless you for being like a tough ass, like football player dude who could be vulnerable like that, because those tears are going to save somebody else. And I really think that you're a really cool dude, man. I really appreciate you.
Clear that you're listening and observing. Like, you may not say as much, but you're taking it all in, and I think that's really amazing.
I mean, because can you just imagine like what you take from here and how you then evangelize with to other people who don't have like this access to different people, like how it becomes part of your journey and your story, and like to be able to leverage that, like especially being a Black man, like to talk about and to, you know, like when you add in all those like societal type of layers, like to talk about this to someone else, like that's beautiful. And I thank you for sharing, because it's got like, I done wiped a tear away. I'm over here like,
You and I both grew up in like hyper masculine spaces, and that is something that was never spoken about. If you ever talked about having any issue with your body, right away they'd be like, well, then go lose some fucking weight. What's your problem? Why are you bitching about it? So the fact that I know people like, I know me, and I'm sure you as well, spent most of your life trying to change your body, trying to be smaller, coming into a community like this where we can talk and stop viewing our bodies as the problem and start looking for places and companies and people to solve our problems rather than us being the problem.
I've done
is
all
a
the
huge
unhealthy
difference.
stuff to lose weight too, like everything from like the wrong kind of drugs to the wrong kind of eating to bulimia to everything else to hurt my body, to try to get it to a position. And it don't matter how rich or how skinny you get, it doesn't solve any of the internal problems. And that's the gag, man. When you get there and you're like, wow, I finally am the size I want to be and everything else, and you still have all the same issues. I could look at a picture of myself when I lost like the most weight or whatever I ever lost, and I felt fatter than I feel now.
Oh, yeah.
Because fat is on the inside, that bad fat that people are talking about. Because it's what you're feeling is all of the negative intention that people had against you wrapped around a body image that you've given a name to. But when you say yourself that you're worthy, even as a comedian, I'm not up there making I mean, sometimes I'll joke, but I don't make too many fat jokes about myself either, because I put myself in a position where nobody will talk that shit around me, because they know that Danny respects himself and Danny loves himself, and therefore they start treating me differently. And then the way they treat you makes you actually get that confidence afterwards. So it's just like you have to, it's an internal fix. It's not an external. And that's really the big gag at the end of the day.
And then you come see me.
Right.
That was actually very beautifully said. It is so much of what is inside, even though our problem is what's on the outside. I love this space because I can take up space. I love that I'm here. I don't feel like I fit in all the time because all of you are like famous and stuff. And I'm new. I just, but I feel like Big Fig cares about two of the things that I care most about: big people and mental health. And I'm here for that. And I'm here to use my voice, my education, whatever I can to push that narrative forward and be part of something like this. So I'm super grateful to be here and to know you all. And I brag about all of you all the time to everyone because you're famous.
I'm grateful that you're here and that you're leveraging your platform, because you are giving us perspective. Your voice totally does matter. And I want you to be louder and take up all the space that you need to, darling, because seriously, I mean, like, how many doctors do we know in this space that are part of the community that can come with science and like,
and you're really making a way for people. You're really doing things. This collective is making a way for people to be able to do things that are extraordinary.
So worth it to be able to see people that, like, just like last year, like are going through like what you went through, but you were able to like pave some waves for them. And it's just like a lot, I don't know, it's rewarding to be able to see that and to give people kind of what you wanted growing up. And even now, I mean, like I say, growing up, and I'm way too old to be growing up still, but it's like
Oh, never,
something
honey.
that's, oh yeah. But I mean,
I'm curious
it's something
and
I want to
challenged
see.
to see any other brand in any other medium have a think tank specifically centered around body positive people, because if it exists, I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
Like, this is something that is unique to Big Fig, and I think it's something that puts this company into an outstanding place for people who have a bigger figure.
I've consulted for businesses who their entire thing was trying to push into the plus size market, and when they never came close to this level of consideration
And how
as Big
simple is
Fig
it to
does.
just be like, let's talk to plus size people and see what they want.
Talk to the people who use the product.
If you think about it, like, this is something that I have literally been challenging like brands to do. Like, even the ones that are on, you know, that are legacy brands, that like you start to see this like level of like arrogance with like a lot of these legacy brands who don't want to grow with the times. All they're looking at is numbers and data. However, data can only tell you so much, but having this conversation and connection will give you the context and the understanding. This is what's missing, because like, there's so many brands that could be doing so much more, making so much more dollars. There's so much money to be made.
I've done other discussions with people where I was like, why don't you guys offer sizes with other brands? Like, why don't you offer sizes in clothing over this? Well, our market research shows that people of those size don't buy clothes. I said, do you sell those clothes? No. Okay, I bet your market research finds they don't buy a lot of bananas from you either, because you don't fucking make bananas. That doesn't make any sense.
And then here's where it gets like even more irritating, is because like in PR, in marketing, in agencies, these sectors don't cater to, understand, or have taken the time to know anything about the plus space.
Yeah, it's very obvious a lot of times that a plus size person was not in
involved.
the room. And I think what I love about the collective is that Big Fig put us in the room together. We all feed off of each other. And I think we've seen changes in the ads, in the products. Like, it's become better. And I love that like we were able to help with that because they gave us the opportunity.
And I helped. It's like
I'm not like patting us on the back, but also
the shake and bake
yeah.
commercial. Y'all remember that? It's shake and bake, and I helped.
We are talking about a bed, because that's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning is get out of a Big Fig. So it's like, at least you're starting your day in a way that is in a positive way for your size. Like, you had a good night's sleep. The edge of the bed doesn't go down.
No matter what happens the rest of the day, you fit in that morning. When you woke up, you're in the
it
right
would be nice
place.
if brands, you know, if we, things started to accelerate in other ways.
Well, I travel for a part of what I do as an influencer. I'm a travel influencer, and I miss my Big Fig when I travel, so my morning doesn't start out that way. But I have had to learn how to say, do you have chairs without arms, in many different languages now. And I think like this is a global conversation, and the travel industry is definitely one of those industries that has problems with this. Travel is catered towards able-bodied people who can do these wonderful adventures, and they don't.
Cruise ship showers.
Yes, literally. Yeah, that's like one.
I have like one leg in the cruise ship shower.
Yeah.
I'm like get
Yeah.
the other leg in.
At that point, just go to the pool.
It's literally, yeah, there's so many places where like we can sort of control our home, but when we travel, all those things become out of our control. And I am always going into hotel rooms. The first video I take is of the shower, so I can tell my followers, like, look how big the shower is here. I can tell you Mexico has the best showers of any country I've ever been to. They're always big, but I think like there's just so many things that travel, obviously we've talked about the airplane seats. There's so many places in travel.
Why do airplane seats have seatbelt extenders and not just long seatbelt straps on every seat?
Well, did you know that when the seatbelt gets frayed, they just cut it? So that's why you fit on, maybe some folks fit on one seat and don't need an extender, and then on the next plane, same exact plane, they don't fit. It's because the flight attendants are cutting the seatbelt and making them shorter. Yeah, so there's like all these things that like are happening behind the scenes, and we're internalizing them as our body is the problem. the shower, the seatbelt on the plane, the chair at the restaurant, all these things. And it's like, if the travel industry could, one, think about us, like just acknowledge that we exist, I think that would be amazing. But also like, yeah, work on those accommodations. Like I was at a bar in Sicily and we walked up and without even thinking about it, the owner came by and just switched the chairs. And I was like, I feel so seen and validated, and like I didn't have to ask for it. Like how amazing would that be to walk up, have a granita, and then like be able to just be comfortable.
A restaurant booth, like, don't attach the table to the floor. Let us have the option of being able to push it towards our skinny friends.
Yeah, I look like the capital
Don't even want to
B.
eat here anymore.
Like it's just like a huge like table in my
Yeah.
gut. Like it's just not
I
comfortable.
don't mind it so much when they're not connected to the floor, but those ones that are, it's such a big mistake.
It is. Yeah, you're so right.
But we just want to be where other people are, and that's the biggest thing. Is these
A bunch of aerials.
Oh, so especially, I mean, especially like booths are a huge thing. Airplane seats are a huge thing. I'm such a big theater nerd, and I have a list of Broadway houses in New York that I cannot go see a show at because there's no possible way I'll be able to feel anything from the waist down by the time the show is over.
I will 100% think twice before I see a concert at the Greek. I will have to call in advance and make sure that my seat is accommodated.
I canceled this month. I canceled like a huge concert I wanted to go to when I found out. I was like, oh, where is it? And they're like, oh, it's at the Bushnell. And I was like, oh, I can't fucking sit anywhere in that entire place. So we miss out on experiences because there's just no way to accommodate us. Like I'm in, I like rock climbing. I think that's a simple thing. And I go to there, and a lot of these rock climbing gyms have auto belay systems that are only rated up to 250 pounds. So if I let go when I'm up there, I'm hitting the ground with speed. Like I don't even have the option to exercise in half the places.
Yeah, I think the first step that any brand, like no matter what the industry is just giving a shit. Like that's the thing, is so many brands just ignore the problem, and it is a problem. And so like step one, giving a shit. Step two is having a conversation. Like when I think about like professional workplaces, like where I work in an office, some like any company can do it. Like send out like a survey about just accessibility and comfortability in the office. Like, do you like your chair? Are there problems with like the elevator? Like things like that. Like a lot of companies will not do that because they just don't want to know what the problem is. They just assume everyone can just deal with what they have.
It's almost tantamount to their success, right? To have this input, to do a survey. But like something like this is like, I'm impressed. I've been impressed, like that someone like cared enough to be like, no, we're gonna have these conversations. And not for nothing, like even the information they share back with us, right? The insights to show how the needle has been moved is really impactful because you're able to see like little mini case studies, right?
In the media, I just want to see more representation of people that look like us and continue to get casted in bigger roles and not be subject to roles where, like, you know, you were saying, like,
The cashier,
Can I get
the
a
comic
kiss?
relief,
You
or
know what I
like,
mean?
yeah,
Like we deserve
the
to be
asexual sidekick or whatever.
Exactly, we deserve to be in those big spaces and those big roles and continue to push the envelope. So that's what I'd like to see.
Thinking of it from a parenting perspective, I wish there were resources out there for parents for instilling those kind of body image ideals into our children. I have young daughters, and I think a lot about the world they're going to grow up in versus the one I did, and they will have a lot more resources. And even as someone who's lived in a different body and experienced all of it, I still wonder sometimes how to address certain things with my kids. And you know, I want to instill self-confidence, self-love, self-esteem, and, you know, body neutrality. And I would love to see more resources out there, books and, you know, coloring books and just different things out there for kids. That's something that weighs on me a lot.
Come on, honey. Come on.
Caitlin's like,
We have to create them. We have to make that space. You know, this collective is that, like creating a space that didn't exist for us, and you know, and doing that. You know, the Big Fig was born out of a problem. Like the greater company saw that people were having an issue and created it. And that's how things get solved. So, you know, you need to make the coloring books and you need to make the things. And
I mean, and he's like a whole
I do
illustrator right
illustrations.
here.
Yeah.
I mean, we got a whole thing going
We
on.
got some children's books that are like about loving. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yes. Let's do it. Let's talk.
There you go. We got a whole JV happening right here.
Oh, I also, in terms of products, I was thinking, I just went car shopping a while ago. Freaking nightmare. Like, I had to, the car salesman, like, watches you get in and out of the car, and they're like, how do you like it? And it's like, well, Brian, I can't fucking fit. It was awful. Like, can you imagine if there was a car line for big people? I would buy that in an instant.
I tell you, my leg is always resting on whatever's on the side here in the car, and that is, you want to talk about a pain point? My God, like it could make or break like a long. Like I drive as a comedian, I'm driving from venue to venue and state to state constantly. Sometimes I say, am I a comic or am I a rental car tester outer? I don't know. Because I'm on stage for like 30 minutes and I'm in cars for hours.
I just bought a new car, and they now have like a
divider.
A divider now.
I was so excited by that.
Like,
yeah.
it's the weirdest thing because you don't realize how much you needed it until like you get it and you're like, whoa, this is great.
I did because I am a man spreader. I'm like, I want to be like in the car like.
I will tell you that some car companies are paying attention, because there's this one, I won't say the name of the car, but like their, what do you call it, logo is everybody in. Everybody in. And so they're literally paying attention to like how they're marketing and whom they're talking to, and they care about these things. Like my new car, I'm in a baby SUV, and I feel like it's the weirdest feeling because I feel so like
Feel tiny.
Yes, it's the weirdest thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm comfy. I could, like it's little nuances and differences that really make the whole experience. And so I'm curious to see, I'm totally just using your knee.
That's
Thank
fine.
you. But I'm curious to see like how this continues, like how other companies pay attention to like the inclusivity of plus bodies in every facet. Like, can the cruise lines do anything better? Like, I mean, like, have they been called out? Like, how can we support? Like, who's leading that charge? Because, like, I ain't getting on a cruise ship after how they responded from Rona. So, like, until, like, I see some changes, like, I enjoy good
And they
vacation.
are constantly building new ones, so it's like there is that
And it's
chance.
all luxury, but I have to shower one leg at a time.
Right. It's like, you want to cram as many people, but have is it really luxury if you're going to cram a whole bunch of people? Like, it's like, how do you define and redefining those terms and whom they apply to? It's really about knowing your audience and knowing your consumer.
And when you have those conversations, it's not just a room full of straight white people. I love Zach, but we all know, we can have these conversations. Like, we're learning different things from everyone, like, because they're not all just like the same person. Like, you're learning from different races, different communities. Like, I think that is such a major thing that all brands should be doing. I mean, it's the only way to continue getting better. And ultimately, like, at the end of the day, brands want to make money. Like, it's the best way to do it is starting that conversation.
So much money literally being left on the table.
But it's about who they want as their customer, who is seen as a desirable customer, because we see this in the queer community all the time. It's like, you could be making a lot of money, but you don't want us included because of how you think it makes you look. You don't want the backlash. I don't know how your Pride was. Mine was awful because of the backlash of everybody not wanting to be the next Bud Light, where they got that backlash from people. So I think this is a time where brands can stand up and say, I want to be on the right side of history. I am going to listen to these diverse voices because what they have to say matters. I want to listen and I want to change. And people who don't want to change are going to be left in the past. But right now it feels really hard because that loud minority of people is wrong, but they're really loud.
But they've been platformed, right?
Yes,
and
they've been platformed.
And they've been like put money behind them, so they're given these resources to speak or to affect or to impact, and it goes against all the things that communities have been. And it's like, I think even more important why groups like this. So it's like, I know what your challenges are. Like, how can I help support you? How can I help support you? And then we know exactly what we're all dealing with, and we're able to support each other in all different kinds of ways.